sorry that I didn't respond, but I did have a chance to review them this afternoon. Thank you. No, it's okay. It's all right.
And you got both,
I
right?
don't have two good neighbor guides.
I don't know, I got two
Am I?
too.
I thought it was just really bad neighbor. So I needed it to be.
Grinders.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Oh, I see.
You're joking, right?
Yeah, I'm joking. Okay. I mean, I could. Just gotta get that heartbeat up, man.
This is, that one's mine.
Today's not the day, my friend.
Hey, they always put, hey, they always put your stuff here. I think this, is this yours?
No, this is fine.
You got a medium? I didn't get an extra large.
I got medium because I know they come like 10 sizes too big.
Okay.
I'm a medium when it's 10 sizes too big. What else am I supposed to say? All right. Looks like we got everyone that's going to be here tonight. It's my privilege to call to order the Monday, August 12th, 2024 Royal Oak City Commission meeting to order. We're going to begin with an invocation given by Commissioner Douglas, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask that you stand if you can, please.
In a recent issue of the Atlantic magazine, Ann Applebaum described Russian and Chinese disinformation campaigns in American media intended to, quote, create fear, cynicism, nihilism, and apathy. The point is to convince Americans that their democracy is degenerate, their elections illegitimate, their civilization dying. And it's not just foreign agents. Some who call themselves Americans also undermine our democracy. In the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, they claim elections are rigged, defaming the integrity of city and county clerks and election workers. In a New York Times opinion, Jamel Bouie wrote, "Many people will resign themselves to the new status quo, persuading themselves that nothing has fundamentally changed or concluding that it is not worth the time or effort involved to pick up the fight." It is worth the fight, but it takes work. We cannot stare at our phones and let the algorithms of TikTok, Facebook, and X tell us what we should know because they do not have the well-being of our nation at heart. Seek independent journalism. Did you know that you can read the New York Times, Washington Post, and Wall Street Journal for free through the Royal Oak Public Library? They also offer access to our 2 local newspapers. For news about state government, I recommend Bridge Magazine, a free, nonprofit, independent online news platform. Citizenship takes work. We need to study independent sources of information to be able to make decisions that reflect our values, and those values must include commitment to our Constitution and to the rule of law, and recognition of the authority of our elected officials from this table to the White House. Our democracy hangs in the balance.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Douglas. All right, that brings us to item 4 tonight, which is the approval of the agenda. I want to remind whoever makes the motion that we want to add one additional item.
I'm ready.
Oh, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Macy, would you like to make the motion?
I'd like to move approval of the agenda with the removal from the agenda entirely of consent items D and M, as in melody, and adding to the end a discussion of following the advice of legal counsel as discussed in closed session regarding the City of Royal Oak versus Municipal Parking Services and Great Northern Insurance Company, Oakland County Circuit Court, case number 2024-208036-CB.
Okay, we have a motion for an agenda. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion on the agenda. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. We have an agenda. All right, that brings us to item 5, which is public comment. Before we commence public comment, just a few remarks. The City Commission values and relies on the input of our fellow citizens to help make decisions. Now is the time set aside for the public to address the City Commission on any city-related issue, whether or not it's on the agenda. I ask that comments be directed to the City Commission as a whole and not to individual commissioners. In addition to public comment, there will be 2 public hearings at tonight's meeting. If you're here to comment on the public hearing on request of Atlas Properties LLC, doing business as Ye Old Saloon, or public hearing on the request of Premier Hospitality Royal Oak LLC, DBA Hyatt House, you may wait till that time of which the public hearings are open, and comment at that time will follow with the same rules that we have for this public comment. If you wish to speak tonight, either at public comment or at the public hearings, please wait until recognized by me, the mayor, then come up to the podium. For the record, we ask that you state your name and address. Please be mindful the city wishes to hear from anyone who wants to speak tonight, so comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, not per topic. And we do have a timer at the podium to help you keep track of your time. If you don't wish to speak tonight, no problem. Many people reach out to us via email. It's often more helpful to get those comments ahead of the meeting so we can think about them, follow up, ask questions, etc. Please know we typically don't respond to questions during public comment. However, we do write those questions down, and when the topic is discussed, we ask those questions on behalf of the public. If your questions aren't related to anything on the agenda, we kindly ask that you leave your contact information with our community engagement specialist, Ms. Judy David. She does an excellent job of either getting the answer for you right away or making sure that we can find the answer for you and help answer and address your concern. And our interim city manager is also taking notes and looks into matters as appropriate. So with that, who's first tonight? Yes, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill Harrison, Royal Oak. The Lockwood project is definitely superior to the Curry project in terms of the affordability time frame, number of affordable units, and percent of AMI threshold. You'll remember that Curry has already been awarded 81 parking spaces in the 5th and Lafayette parking structure that offsets between $2.0 and $2.4 million in parking construction cost. The monthly parking pass is only 1/6 of the offset interest cost on $2 million mortgage. Lockwood is providing their own on-site parking. I'm concerned about the Oakland County HTF manager's comment that this, quote, this timeline, 18 months, may not be sufficient length for Lockwood to prepare all plans, documents, and obtain approvals. I do not see any reference to a timeline and description thereof in the agreement with Oakland County. And by the way, what dictates this 18-month schedule? It seems that the aforementioned 18-month timeline should be defined and included as a condition under the paragraph termination of returned funds or as a separate paragraph in the agreement. Moving on to the golf course, I attended the meeting with Parks and Rec regarding the golf course. The meeting was packed. There must have been over 45 people, ranging anywhere from 20-year-olds to 83-year-olds. It's an important part of our city, and it's as I say, just another park. It should be. It should seem that ARPA funds could be used to supplement the outstanding sewage charges. I do recognize that sewage charges are applicable to unreturned wastewater, because if you don't return the wastewater, it must be made up from the intakes and treated. Back over 40 years ago, when I worked on the combined sewer overflow project with the city of Detroit, Stroh's Brewery made the same argument that, they're not returning the water. Well, everybody laughed because we know eventually the water is returned. Now, last comment regarding the invocation, let's not go to sleep on the idea of interference with voting. I don't want to go into details, I'll do that some other time, but we identified 46 people whose votes in the November 23 election were not counted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. All right, anybody else?
Wait, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. If I may, I just want to make clear that election integrity is really important in the city of Royal Oak, and every vote was counted that was cast, was audited by the by the Oakland County Board of Canvassers, and that every vote counts, so it's important that we don't lie about elections here.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Mr. Harrison.
Not what a judge
We've
said.
got
Mr.
signed
Harrison.
affidavits
Mr.
that
Harrison.
say that people vote.
All right, who's next?
You're for.
We'll go on the back corner, the teal shirt, yep.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Mike Falasa. I live at 324 East 6th Street, and I have a few comments about Arts, Beats, and Eats. One, I never knew Royal Oak had an Air Force, because right in front of my house, planes are flying over my house all day long in my backyard, soliciting either marijuana, a Ford dealership, a casino, and sometimes a strip joint. And I'm wondering if there's something we can do about that, because the only reprieve I get is when they go to land and refuel or sunset comes, and then I can finally get a break. Two, golf carts from Grant Park to the event on 6th Street, transporting employees, security, vendors, etc. They're loud, they're obnoxious, they don't pay attention to the rules of the road. Is there a way we can divert that to Lincoln and possibly 4th Street and move that in that direction? 3 and 4 are kind of tied together, talk about, I call it the Red Solo Cup Gang. Right around mid-afternoon till the evening, you have bands of individuals that are coming with red Solo cups filled with alcohol, open containers, right under the police department's nose, and will litter on my lawn at least, and if at worst, are urinating on my property. My neighbor who lives 2 doors down has a garage on 6th Street, and they use that as their last public bathroom. I believe I even spoke with you about that last year, and I met you, and you were really cool to a bunch of kids in the neighborhood. They didn't believe you were the mayor, and you are. Finally, parking enforcement. These are useless, because people will park across the street from my house and they play a game of catch as catch can. I used to tell people not to park in front of my house, and they would respond with some forward expletives and give me some pithy comments of what I could do with myself. So I stop it. So now I just call the police, and while I do that, I time them to see how long it takes. And what I found is that later in the evening, as the events go on, there's more violators. And as you go later in the event, Sunday, Monday, the police response is extremely long, if anything at all. I'd like to think that we could hopefully do something about this, just a suggestion. I know Arts, Beats, Neats is going to be here forever, but I'm starting to dread it. If we can do something about the planes flying in the air, the golf carts in front of my house, people using my bathroom and my neighbor's, my lawn and my neighbor's lawn as a bathroom, and maybe improving the code enforcement with parking, it'd be great. You wouldn't believe all the people who look and they get in the car and they see that little yellow envelope on their windshield, because they think they can get away with it. And they walk away, and I'm on the horn, and then I got you guys on the clock. So, thank you for your time. All of you be safe. Thank you.
I'll just break my rule of not responding real quick. Those are all good points. We are going to have a communication coming out, at least about the, because it's really annoying. I live in the neighborhood as well, and the flights, it's terrible. And I know the promoter, we shut it down last year based on complaints. The challenge is we have an FAA issue, so in his contract, none of his sponsors can do it. It doesn't mean that somebody else can't jump in. And I know our chief is working an angle with the FAA, with other chiefs, to figure out what we can do to limit that airspace, because it's not a Royal Oak thing. It's not even the promoter thing. There's 400,000 people that show up over the weekend. People want to fly up there. So we are, just more on that later. And then the other ones, email me. I have some ideas from last year that we're trying to get put into place to help alleviate some of those stresses. So if you want to reach out, respond back.
Absolutely.
I don't want to bore everybody with the technicalities, but there's some ideas and get your thoughts on them too.
Thanks, all of you. Be safe.
Okay, who's next? Yes, sir.
You ready?
Always ready.
I've got some friends with me from behind me here. Mark Sackett, General Manager, Royal Oak Leprechauns. We just completed our 4th season at Royal Oak's premier park, Memorial Park, in what we refer to as the Lucky Corner. And as you know, we joined the prestigious Northwoods League this year, which is a top-level summer college league. We were different than those people up in Utica because all of our guys are college students. We would not have been successful this year if it wasn't for the on-the-ground help of Gary, Scott, Greg, and Mike, all the guys that work at the park, as well as the administrative help from Aaron Filipski and Lee Kollick. All were instrumental in helping us. Gary, Scott, Greg handled the daily park maintenance. There was a lot of cleanup that we did ourselves, but they also jumped in. Mike and his crew repaired the outdated grandstands, the roof of the ticket hut, the roof of the press box, the ceiling of the men's bathroom, and then assisted Lee Kollick's group in providing us a stand for our pitch clock in left field. So they were instrumental with everything we did here. And although we were not yet able to install the mobile home locker room and the left field hospitality suite, we still saw over 30,000 spectators. We installed 2 porta potties by the turf field press box, and we saw much use by Leprechaun fans, as well as Sandlot League families and other tournament renters at the park. We learned those restrooms are necessary at the far end of the park. We engaged 6 of 10 families that were from Royal Oak to be host families, one of which was Judy Davids over here and her husband, and also Ashley Reynolds, who's behind us here. These people said that that all the families expressed hosting a college kid from another state was a life-changing experience. All of our games were streamed live, 26 of them on the Northwoods app, while 10 were on ESPN+. We saw viewership ranging from 1,500 to 2,000 on the Northwoods app, and we saw over 5,000 people on the ESPN+ app. There's a lot of people tuning in to what's going on at Royal Oak's premier park. We highlighted and partnered with over 30 nonprofits, and we raised over $5,000 for these nonprofits. We found 98 companies in the area that were eager to support our vision. These are just some of the local Royal Oak nonprofits. We employed over 30 college interns. With unique positions for the summer, we activated a family fun zone for each game and reinvested in the park concession stand that provided a benefit to both Leprechauns as well as to the Royal Oak Sandlot League. We even tried a delivery service for Sandlot families to the far end of the park, and that was pretty cool, and it worked really well, and I think it received a warm welcome by Royal Oak residents. In late spring, we worked with the World War II Memorial Group in beautifying the park by planting new flowers at the front main gate and refinishing the Trees Given in Memoriam sign. So we are working hard at that park, and it's not just we are expecting it to come from the city. We are working as hard. We know we made a lot of positive impacts with the teams traveling to Royal Oak. I know we spent over $40,000 housing people. We are proud to call Royal Oak's premier park our home, and in the coming days, we are excited to announce our 10-year vision that details our goals through 2024. Thanks for the overtime.
Thank you. Extra innings for Mr. Sackett. You guys are doing an outstanding job and a great summer. Really impressed, and I didn't get out there as much as I would have liked to, but my kids certainly did. And when you say that 30,000, that's not just people. That's people from our community enjoying an American pastime, spending time with their friends and their family, and getting out of the living room and getting out and re-entering society. And don't underestimate your role in that as well. So we look forward to working with you as we learn and grow together. And I'm grateful that you're here.
They knocked it out of the park.
Oh, wow. It was a home run.
No, you're safe.
Hey, that's 2 strikes talking out of turn. 1 more, you're out.
Just run up the score here.
Oh, man.
Roll from the game.
All right, who's next tonight? Going once? Yes.
Nancy Poprovsky, concerned citizen. I'm a huge fan of night sky and the sky's beauty and wonder in general. I wanted to witness the peak of the meteor shower last night. The last rare light show was an aurora borealis. Even though it was beautiful, you only see the real beauty under dark sky without city lights. Royal Oak skies are too bright for a good showing. I've been driving north away from the city lights for years to view meteor showers. One clear meteor sighting is exciting. I've seen up to 25 in an hour north of Royal Oak, and it's good for the soul, calming, quiet, in its entertainment and wonder. And it's free. Some people like that entertainment. Others might like arts, beats, and eats, with things to buy, crowds, fun and loud entertainment, with admission and parking together around $25. I enjoy music, people, and fun, but that's pricey for my income. Nature is my favorite choice anyway. If you enjoy the sky in Royal Oak, there's less of it due to high rises and lighting. If you enjoy natural beauty and environmentally friendly entertainment, here's some disturbing facts about LED lighting outdoors. Night sky is getting 10% brighter yearly. We are turning night to day, upsetting sleep patterns and wildlife ecosystems. Birds' food chains broken when insects are dying when drawn to light, and the bird population declined by 3 billion. Floodlit buildings causing bird collisions. Sea turtle hatchlings drawn to light are perfect bait for predators. Dark places are a refuge for mating so animals don't mate. Nocturnal animals rely on darkness to forage. Light is a signal of danger if it's too bright. We keep taking away their habitat by overdeveloping. Good news if you're concerned. No LED outdoors. Dim lights and turning off lights outdoors, if not needed for safety, will help. I hope you can see the light and change the use of LEDs and lighting in general. Will we be among the last to see such wonders before a haze of man-made blue light conceals the night sky from future generations? We owe it to them and to all creatures that depend on the dark, and not to let that happen. And also, I don't know if anybody in here knows Mr. Harrison. I don't know him really well. I know we're not all perfect. I'm not perfect. I just want you to know that a few years ago during COVID, when people were losing their homes and they couldn't pay their rent, he did not make his renters pay rent for 3 months. So just remember that when we make comments and aren't too kind. Not everybody is perfect, but some people really help the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Profosky. All right, anybody else wish to speak tonight at public comment? Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to close public comment and bring the meeting back to this side of the table, which brings us to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to make a motion on the consent agenda? Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I'll move approval of the consent agenda as modified earlier.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. All right. Discussion. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Consent is passed unanimously. All right, that brings us to item 7, which is the Michigan Liquor Control Commission public hearing, Atlas Properties LLC, otherwise known as U Old Saloon. And we have Chief Moore to kick us off.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight, Lieutenant Carly Renault is going to take the next 2 MLCC items for us.
Is she behind that monitor here?
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
I didn't
I'm really
know.
sorry. You want me to stand up?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
I just,
Yeah. I'll just.
the perfect monitor position not to see
Yeah,
it.
I'm just talking to the screen. All right, thank you, Mayor and Commission. Before you have a request to review a new plan of operation for Atlas Properties doing business as Ye Old Saloon. The Royal Oak Police Department received a request from Ye Old Saloon to add an outdoor service area, change their hours of operation, and add an additional storage to the building located at 1023 South Main Street. The outdoor service area will be on the north side of the building and located on their private property in the existing parking lot. The outdoor service area will have seating for 38 patrons. There will be glass sides and a glass roof that will be retractable. There will be no piped or canned music in the outside area. Secondly, they wish to change their hours of operation. Currently, they operate Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 a.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 a.m., and Sunday, noon to 2 a.m. The applicant requests to operate 11 a.m. to 2 a.m., 7 days a week. Lastly, the applicant wishes to add additional storage onto their building. This space will be approximately 452 square feet and will be used for storage only and won't affect or increase their interior seating. The police department does not anticipate this to cause any additional strain to police resources. And I can take any questions, or the applicant and their attorney are also here.
Questions for Lieutenant Renault? Pretty straightforward. Any questions for the applicant? Do we want the applicant to come up, or is everybody?
Sure.
Commissioner Colo?
I just want to know if they can bring back the burger special on Sunday nights, because I dearly miss it.
Yeah.
Best burger in town. I love it. I'll pay $1.25 then.
All right, no questions then, huh? Commissioner Douglas.
Not a question, but a comment. They have already been before the Planning Commission showing us the design for their outdoor patio. It's thoughtfully planned, very attractive, with a unique awning that will make it kind of a 3 seasons patio. Their work, the work that they brought to the Planning Commission was very thorough and thoughtful. They had support from the neighbors, so this is an asset to our city. And I'm happy to move approval of
Public
the...
hearing.
Oh, we gotta do a public hearing first.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Okay, any other questions? All right, we'll open up the public hearing. Anybody here wish to speak on this topic? Wow, this is eerily quiet. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to this side of the table. Commissioner Douglas.
I'd like to move approval of the revised plan of operation.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion. Commissioner Colo.
Yeah, I keep on pushing that, Sharon. I just want to second Commissioner Douglas. I mean, this is a well-prepared plan. It's lays all out for us very clearly, and they've been a great operator in town too, so this seems like a layup to do tonight.
Yep. I agree. I mean, at Planning Commission, really impressed with the design, and this will be a first in Michigan technology for the outdoor dining. So I'm really curious to see how it goes. We've been, for a number of years, trying to establish, and Mr. Solomon's here tonight, and he knows too, to establish Royal Oak as the place to, when it's nice weather in Michigan, come to Royal Oak. You don't know where you're going to eat, but this just reinforces that idea that our awesome restaurants, whatever your flavor is, that Royal Oak is open for business on beautiful days, and come and enjoy. Bring your family, bring your date, bring your spouse, whatever, best friend. And I think this will add to the tapestry of what is outdoor dining in Royal Oak, and very eager and excited to see it. Okay. With that, call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. All right. Now the hard work. Okay, that brings us to item 8, which is Michigan Liquor Control Commission public hearing, Premier Hospitality Royal Oak LLC, doing business as Hyatt House. Lieutenant Renault.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. Before you, you have a request to review a new proposed plan of operation from Premier Hospitality Royal Oak, doing business as Hyatt House. The Royal Oak Police Department received a request from Hyatt House to review a plan of operation for a new Resort B hotel liquor license to be located at 30955 Woodward Avenue. The applicants are also requesting a Sunday sales permit, SDM permit, entertainment permit, dance permit, and outdoor service permit. The applicants are seeking approval before having obtained their liquor license. The applicant sent out hundreds of certified letters to other Class C and B hotel liquor license establishments with escrow licenses and were unable to obtain one to transfer. The applicants have been actively involved in the hotel business for many years and have vast experience in operating liquor license establishments dating back to 1992. One of these establishments is the Hyatt Place Hotel, which is located at 422 North Main Street in Royal Oak. The hotel is a 5-story building with a bar, dining area, registration, and banquet area on the first floor, and 128 guest rooms on floors 2 through 5. The applicants anticipate the ratio of sales to be 6% food sales, 5% alcohol sales, and 89% hotel sales. Food service will be from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. Alcohol service may begin at 7 a.m. with the last call at 1:30 a.m., and there will be no room service offered. The proposed licensed premise has proposed seating for 131 patrons, including 10 seats at the bar. The breakdown for the seating, the first floor is food service and social area, has seating for 65 patrons, which includes the 10 seats at the bar, an outdoor patio for 15 patrons, and a banquet and gathering area that has seating up to 51 patrons, depending on how they position the tables and the seating. Hyatt House may offer occasional entertainment, such as a DJ or band, and have a portable dance floor for their banquet area. The Royal Oak Police Department is not opposed to this request, and I can either take any questions, or the applicant and their general manager are here if you would like to ask them questions.
Any questions for Lieutenant Renault? Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lieutenant, the process of generating this license, the state will generate a brand new resort Class B license.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Macy.
So this address is Woodward's Corner, right?
Yes, it's the hotel that's going up. It's kind of on Coolidge right before you get to Beaumont's property there, the actual hospital, or Corwell, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Any other questions? Before we open up the public hearing, does the petitioner want to come on up and maybe talk a little bit about your project and be available for questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Jimmy Asmar, 7031 Orchard Lake Road. Thank you for having us here. We're very excited about this project. We operate hotels all throughout the state of Michigan. We're very excited to be to continue growing in Royal Oak. We feel that's an excellent project for us and for the community and for Corwell Health. And I'll introduce John if you want to have anything to say.
Absolutely. I'm Jonathan Acer, also a partner on the project. I also handle operations for the hotel. Obviously, Royal Oak has very limited lodging options, so we're bringing something different, something fresh and new. And the difference between a Hyatt Place and a Hyatt House is each room has a full kitchenette, just like an apartment. So whether they're staying for a day or two or 25 days for somebody, a loved one in the hospital or for business, we'll be able to offer that. And it's a one-stop shop. So we've made a deal with the Woodward Market by Meyer, where they could have groceries delivered to their room, and they have nice support services. So somebody who doesn't want to go out and dine, they could stop at the H bar and grab a quick drink or a small bite. So we're excited to get this project going, and as you guys can see, it's already up, but we're ready to get open. So thank you.
Great. Any questions? Commissioner Hahn.
It's just on.
Well, thank you for being here today and giving us more information about this. I understand that selling to minors happens, that happens every now and then. But in 2017, you had somewhat of a serious issue with the topless dancing issue. What are you doing to keep that from happening again? Do you have some sort of security or some sort of random checks?
I can't speak directly about that incident. That may have been another license holder that is also a partner on this project. So I don't have the specific details, or I don't know anything about that incident, but I can get more information on it.
It indicates that it's topless dancing, nudity, charge or change nature of business knowing and unknowingly allowed accosting and solicitation for prostitution. You're not aware of that?
I'm not aware, but we definitely have procedures in place to prevent all of that.
Okay, what are those procedures?
The training, the type of training that we offer, the management, security, all types of things that we implement to prevent those types of behavior in our properties. We're corporate hotels. We're not really looking for any of that type of behavior. We're looking just to have the bars as an amenity to our guests, not for any of that type of activity.
And I also will note the Hyatt brand is an upscale brand. It's a lifestyle luxury brand, so they have their own standards. And if you compare them to other hotel brands, they're checking everything A to Z from our operations to quality. So they're not a brand that you can necessarily cut corners or any type of that sort of operation. So they're very, very strict and have very strict guidelines for every part of the hotel, from check-in to check-out. So.
And I commend you on your menu example for having a large number of gluten-free items, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
I need it for myself too. So.
Any other questions? All right, well, we'll open up the public hearing, and if we get any feedback and need to bring you back up, we will. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for talking a little bit more about the project. All right, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on this petitioner's request? Okay, I will close the public hearing and bring the discussion back up to this side of the table. Mr. Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now we're stating some serious concerns that Commissioner Hunt brought up and would want some more explanations into it. Looks like Chief Moore might have something he wants to say.
Oh, Chief Moore.
If I could, I can expound on, I know some of the background, if that would be helpful tonight. So this violation occurred in 2017. It was actually the different stakeholder. It was at the Wyndham Hotel in Ypsilanti, I believe. And what happened was the license holder put the entire licensed premises in escrow and then rented the entire facility to someone else. So then a party occurred, some serious MLCC violations occurred. So when the other hotel opened in Royal Oak, we put some measures in place that does not allow them to put their license in escrow to prevent this type of behavior from occurring. So that's probably why Mr. Asgar is not familiar with it. It was actually Mr. Namu's hotel in 2017, but there have been no issues since they've been operating here in Royal Oak.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Colo.
Thank you, Chief. So the back half of that was going to be, this is a much needed facility within our city. I had a loved one who was sick and in a hospital for many, many months, and having a place that a family member can go and stay so close to a major center of care is pretty important. So the fact that they will also have food and dining beverage available to them is just a plus and a great asset to the outstanding healthcare we offer in the city. So I'm going to move approval.
A motion by Commissioner Colo. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. All right, discussion? I'll just add the existing hotel that you have in Royal Oak today is very well run. It's, sometimes you open up with a bang and things, especially in the hospitality industry, can kind of taper off. You guys have kept the standard. I know this because I have colleagues in the private sector that I operate in that stay there on a regular basis and love it for two reasons. One, it's a well-run hotel, but two, it's near the center of action in the coolest town in all of Metro Detroit. I mean, I have no bias, by the way. These are just facts. And so you do a really good job. Quality's good. And like Commissioner Colo said, for any of us that have had loved ones enduring an illness for a long time, just having to only focus on the person that is under care is really, really important. Sometimes just figuring out what to eat, where to go, how to order, all of this stuff, just having, the simple thing of being able to get a beer and a burger after a long day of dealing with difficult situations and not having to think about it and having it right there where you're staying makes a difference, I think, in people's life, because a lot of folks that are going to be staying with you are going to be folks that are unfortunately in a tough spot with a loved one at Corwell. So applaud the project. I think this is a great complement to it. Our police department doesn't have any major concerns to recommend against it. So I'll be supporting this motion for sure. All right. With that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. All right, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Did I see our superstar city engineer, Ms. Donahue, approaching the podium. All right. Thank you, Lieutenant Renault. Good job. Appreciate the report. Always very helpful, easy read, makes sense. Thank you for that. That brings us to our July 2024 Traffic Committee resolutions.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. Tonight I have 6 proposed resolutions for you from the July 23rd Traffic Committee meeting. And I have some visual aids up here to keep you entertained as we go. So the first recommendation that we had was an item that was actually tabled from our May meeting. This was a request to add dedicated left turn signal heads at the intersections of Crooks and Normandy, which is here on the left, and then also at Crooks and Lexington, so by the high school. Back in May, we had the TIA perform a warrant study, and we determined that the left turn signals were not warranted at either of these intersections. However, because this was close to a school, the traffic committee wanted us to look a little further and see how much would it cost? Is it something we could still do if we wanted to? So they sent it back to staff to get a little bit more information, and then we discussed it further in July. So the left turn signals here, if we did add them, would not add any significant traffic backup issues, which was one of my big concerns. There's a lot of capacity in both directions, so that was not an issue. However, looking at the 2 intersections, and I'll start with Crooks and Normandy, the required signal heads that we would need to add on here really can't be installed with the configuration that we have right now, which is considered like a diagonal span wire. So it's a diagonal of signals across the intersection that faces all the various directions. And I have a couple pictures down here to illustrate that. In order to get the extra signal heads for the through movements and add the left turn lane and keep the required lateral distance between signal heads and keep the required distance from the stop bars, you just can't fit it all on this diagonal span. So if we wanted to do left turn signals here, we would have to reconfigure the entire intersection into what's called a box span, which is basically wires in the shape of a box around the intersection, which sounds simple, but it's about a $300,000 cost to do something like that. So once we brought that to the committee, they said, okay, maybe we don't want to move forward with left turn signals here if they're not warranted. Looking at the Crooks and Lexington intersection next, we'd really only be looking for dedicated left turns for southbound Crooks to turn onto Lexington. Everywhere else, it's a pretty simple maneuver where you don't need dedicated lefts. The estimated cost to add a signal here, which would fit, is about $24,000. And then we would have some additional optimization costs for our consultant to make sure all the traffic progression works along Crooks there. Without a dedicated funding source for the work and having the warrants to kind of back up the installation here, the committee ultimately is recommending that we do not install left turn signals at either of these intersections. The next item that we looked at was a safety concern. This is for the mid-block crosswalk that's right at Royal Oak Manor. So that's William Street between 6th and 7th. And the concern here is that with the new development of the Hazelton, which is at the corner of, here we have 6th Street and Williams, all the traffic that's going to be exiting that parking garage turns out onto William Street, and this driveway here for the parking garage is pretty close to this existing crosswalk. However, the vehicles as they exit that garage will be more than 25 feet away from the crosswalk, and that's usually the distance that we want to see in terms of proximity between pedestrians and exiting driveways. And so the committee did not feel that prohibiting left turns out of that driveway was really warranted in this situation. I had reached out to the developer before a traffic meeting for the Hazelton, and they indicated they'd be willing to add some watch for pedestrian signs within their parking garage. Not really something I can force them to do, but they did say they'd be happy to do that. And then also, as we were discussing this, another issue came up. You can see in this picture down here, there's a parking spot right in front of the crosswalk. So the crosswalk is faded, but you can see it back in the corner behind this truck. And then the new driveway for the Hazelton would basically be where you're seeing the fence here. So we need to get rid of this parking spot, and I don't think it's ever been formally removed from our parking plan here. So we added that to this recommendation as well. The parking bollard is obviously gone for construction right now, but we would want to remove the striping from the roadway there. And then finally on this item, we should, especially if we have a mid-block crossing, you always want to have those pedestrian warning signs that tell you there's a crosswalk ahead. So in this case, we're looking southbound on Williams at 6th Street. So the mid-block crossing is kind of where you see the car in the image up here. So we should have a warning sign ahead of that crosswalk, which is missing. So we'll add that for the southbound. There already is one for northbound traffic, so it was just this one side that we wanted to make sure we added here. So that wraps up that item. The next one is pretty simple. We had a resident at 230 Virginia just complaining that people are consistently parking between her driveway here and the corner of East University, which is technically illegal. You're not supposed to park within 15 feet of an intersection, but that's not going to stop people. They usually don't know that rule. So in order to prevent that, we are recommending putting a no parking beyond sign right at the driveway so that people are not parking right at the corner there. Our next item was a request to eliminate guardrail. This is in front of 3111 North Main Street, so that's just south of 13 Mile on Main Street. The issue here being, as you drive southbound on Main Street, the person that lives here was complaining that it's kind of hard to turn into their driveway. That guardrail is really close to their edge of concrete, and they were concerned about it. They did not say it was an eyesore, but I will say that this is an eyesore as well, and probably not something that they want in front of their house. We did go to AASHTO, which is the guide that we look to for all of our guardrail recommendations here, just to see if it was warranted. In this location, we are not really shielding anything, to prevent death. Basically, if somebody left the roadway, there's nothing within that clear zone that's an issue here. And we also have 14 feet between the sidewalk and vehicle traffic now that we have that road diet in place. So there's really not a good reason to have guardrail along there. So we're recommending removing this section of guardrail in front of this house at this time, something that DPS can handle. It's a pretty small project. There are several other sections of guardrail on Main Street by 13 Mile, and that's something we'll look at when we do the road project, which is scheduled for 2028 right now. So DPS probably can't do all of it, but they can handle this one section due to the complaint, and then we'll look at the rest of it in a few years here. Next item is a review of the intersection of Kaiser and 6th. So the image over here on the right-hand side, Kaiser is north is up, and then we have 6th Street here. We have stop signs for the east-west direction on 6th Street, and then Kaiser can just flow through that intersection. Any of you that have kids in soccer know that this area is pretty crazy during fall and spring soccer season and gets really congested. Our analysis found that we could install a 4-way stop here. It is warranted due to the sight distance warrant. So basically, if you are sitting on 6th Street and trying to look down Kaiser in either direction, parked cars on the street are preventing you from seeing a safe distance and making that decision to turn or not turn or go straight. So the option is either eliminate a bunch of parking, which is what these red zones illustrate, basically 6 parking spots from an area where we know we need a lot of parking, or just do an all-way stop at this intersection, which is the ultimate recommendation for this location. So we'd put the 4 stop signs in and then also add those all-way plaques so people know that it's an all-way stop. And then just kind of a side note, one intersection to the west here is Lawson and 6th. It's a very simple T intersection that's just missing a stop sign. So we also added that to the recommendation, which is what we do pretty much anytime we find a T intersection that's missing a stop sign. And then our final item tonight was a request to install new guardrail. This is on the east side of Coolidge Highway, so the northbound side between Trafford and WROK. So if you're heading north on Coolidge, this is kind of before you get to the Corwell Health area, and the road just starts to curve towards Corwell, and then of course it curves back towards Woodward. The crash history here shows that cars have left that roadway and actually crashed into this apartment building 3 times in the past 2 years. Major damage, like crashing into people's house, basically. There were several other accidents that we found when we did a longer crash history of 10 years, and a lot of cars are leaving the road there for whatever reason. Based on our analysis, if I was just looking at this in a box, we shouldn't really need guardrail there. It's not a hard curve. It's a 35-mile-an-hour area. But the crash history is really backing up that people are taking that curve way too fast and are leaving the road there. So based on that, we do think putting guardrail at this location would be a prudent decision. And we also recommend relocating there's warning signs for curves, and they're supposed to be within 100 feet of the start of the curve. They kind of look like this sign down here. Currently, the sign for northbound is like, I think 320 feet away or something. So we're recommending putting it within that appropriate distance, close to the start of the curve. And then same thing on the southbound side of Coolidge. That one is like 400 feet away from where it should be. So that's relatively simple. The guardrail, of course, is a pretty expensive undertaking. 250 feet of guardrail is a fair amount. Here, the cost estimate for this work is $45,000. I do have budget remaining on our asphalt resurfacing project. We didn't have to do quite as many base repairs this year, so I am able to cover this, and the contractor quoted the work and is able to add it this fall. And I recommend that we move forward and do that rather than wait through another winter here. I did want to bring up, there was a little confusion at the table when we voted on this item. There was the motion, and then the chair had called for the vote without allowing the chance for discussion. And so one member had something to say, basically, and didn't get his opportunity to speak. And so I said, well, I'll bring that up with the commission, and then if they want to change the resolution, they can certainly do that. So his ask is to consider not only moving these warning signs closer to the start of the curve, but also swapping this one for northbound Coolidge to be the flashing light. So you have basically little LEDs around the light just to bring more focus to it. This is a solar-powered light. It's something DPS could install. If you know me, you know I don't like recommending these a whole lot unless they're warranted, because I don't want to set the precedent that they go up everywhere. However, like I said, we have a pretty significant crash history here, so I don't think it's out of the ordinary to put this in if you wish to do that. I will say most of the crashes are occurring during daytime hours. This doesn't appear to be like a drunk driving at night type of thing, which is what I would have thought it was. But as I look at the history, it's mostly daytime crashes that are occurring. The cost to add this sign is about $3,000, so not a huge cost here. And I can't remember if I mentioned, but DPS is able to install that if you wish. So the resolution as written right now does not include the solar-powered sign. If you wanted to add that, that would be an amendment to make at the table. And that's all I have for you tonight.
All right. Questions for C.E. Donahue? Oh, Commissioner Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess starting on this one, just because it is completely wild. I think I heard this before, but if you were redesigning this road, is this how you would design this road today? Like, it's not a road design issue, right?
I didn't look at the full curve radius out there, I suppose. I didn't look at it from that viewpoint. I can tell you, driving it, it doesn't feel like a hard curve to me. Like,
Yeah.
it's as long as you're paying attention, and maybe that's what the real issue is. If you're paying attention, it's not hard to drive that curve. It doesn't feel tight. It doesn't feel like someone's going to drift into your lane. So it's something we would run, truck turning movements on and all the normal things, but nothing like jumps out at me as like, this is really
design.
No, I was really surprised when we looked into the details on this one.
Yeah, this seems like not that much money to pay for improved safety of all the residents of that area. Can we talk for a second about the stoplight by the high school? So it sounds like it'd be quite expensive to add the four-way or the box lights up at Normandy. What about at Lexington? So that's like $25,000, which you just heard might be in the asphalt contract for next year, maybe, right? Like leftover. We found like 50,000 this year. The warrants say we shouldn't do it, right?
Correct.
Does doing it create any harm?
I don't think so. It might slow some people up on the northbound Crooks Lane, that have to wait instead of flowing through there. I live in this area, so I've driven that quite a bit just to get to soccer and all the things in that area. I can't say that this is a difficult turn to make. This is not like a really congested area, even during, maybe during high school dismissal. I'll admit, I don't have a high schooler yet, so I haven't really driven it during those hours. But you know me, if it's not warranted, I won't recommend it. So I think it's not the best use of the city's money.
So I guess another question I'd have too then, what benefit would there, so knowing that it's not warranted, what benefit, and it wouldn't produce any harm, what benefit would it have if we were to, knowing the one's 300,000, so maybe not that one, but just at Lexington at 25,000, what benefit would that provide to the intersection and just the safety of the area in general?
I think it would just give drivers turning left a little more comfort. They're the only ones that will have that green movement at that time. So that's about it.
I would argue on that one, just having a high schooler, sadly a senior, my heart's breaking every day. The last of everything, last start of swim practice. Anyways, I'll opine later. With newer drivers, I wonder, we do everything based on the average driver, and the average driver is 42 years old, half man, half woman, 5 foot, averages tell you nothing, right? But I think in this particular case, you have a situation where you do have a lot of new drivers that, I think to your point, feel a little uncomfortable turning left there because it's a high school, right? A lot of folks coming from the north part of town. And then will things change a little bit, when we put the chicanes, am I saying that right? Coming off Murray Avenue or Murray, is that going to divert maybe a few more cars to Crooks at that time in the morning? And does it make it a little, those gaps to turn left become even more or less than they are today? And so, my thought is that if there is a benefit, and I don't know, it's 25,000, but it would be that at a minimum a crutch for new drivers.
Yeah.
And at a benefit, I love my daughter, but she still has a lot of driving experience that she has to get before I feel totally comfortable when she drives away. Maybe it's something that provides a little bit of peace of mind in that intersection. Just my thought. Commissioner Macy?
I'm sympathetic to the idea of this, and I know there was there was an incident with but I think it was at the Normandy intersection. And so I think we were looking at this intersection in addition to that, just because of the new driver thing. So I also drive here all the time, 2 high schoolers. Two new drivers. One, I have a 14-year-old who was driving a car, which is just mind-boggling. They don't turn that way very often, because if you want to get into the high school parking lot, you would go above. There's a entrance to the parking lot that's up there. So I'm not saying it never happens. Obviously it does. People who are going over to Quickstad or to that other student parking lot.
Student lot there.
But I don't know that this particular southern-bound left turn lane is like really the hot spot for where the teen drivers are going.
Fair point.
Like if you're looking at the flow of traffic, I sort of agree. Like it's $25,000, and it's not $300,000. But we're buying peace of mind. But is it? I don't know. I'm feeling unsure.
Just switching topics real quick. The guardrail for the Crooks project where it curves, or the Coolidge where it curves, is that going to be just a standard steel colored bright yellow, just reflectors on it, anything that makes it stand out as well?
It's like silver colored or whatever, but you can add reflectors to them, yes. Okay. But we have those chevron signs already that are reflective, so there's a lot of them. You should see that there's a curve there, yeah.
And then maybe the more obvious question, not obvious, but so if folks are running off and it necessitates us to put that structure there, it means that people inevitably will hit it. And what is typically, are we going to be putting this $45,000 thing in every year? Or is it people that hit it, their insurance and all of that covers the cost of replacement?
We can go after insurance, and you're not doing the full guardrail. You fix sections, whatever section's impacted.
I don't want to pay $45,000 3 times a year every time someone hits it. It's not a $45,000 install. It's a $150,000 a year install. If 3 cars hit it a year, you have to replace the whole thing. So, okay, so there is a mechanism that we can, because clearly you're at fault. You don't have your vehicle under control. Sorry about it. That's why you have insurance, and we make decisions at that time if it becomes a problem, I suppose. Okay. Commissioner Herzog.
I have a question about the blinking sign. With the placement, I'm not sure where the placement would be, but would it be blinking in anyone's window? Would a neighbor get upset with the blinking?
I don't think so, because it's basically right at Webster, which you can't see in this image. Just south of here there's the turnaround to get you onto Webster, and then we have the cemetery on the right-hand side here. So I definitely don't think it'll be in anyone's front window bothering them.
Any other questions about any of the items in the Traffic Committee's recommendations? Commissioner Hahn.
I have a question about the Williams property, the parking garage where the cars exit right really close to the street. Has there been any consideration about like sirens or some sort of sound when cars come out that it alerts pedestrians that there is someone coming out of that?
So I'm not an expert on this, so maybe a planning commission member is. I know Mr. Ashley was the one who had brought this up, and I believe he already reached out to the building department asking, are you going to have that noise alert? And I can't remember if it was, it's not required or it's not allowed. I'm not sure which it was, but either way, like it wasn't planned for this development. And I don't know if that's like a neighborhood noise thing, but I sense that might be where that's headed.
I just feel it could be useful, much more than a sign.
I think it's a way better answer for you.
That's fine. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Colo.
You know, just a quick question about the four-way stop up by Grant Park. Have we discussed that in the past? Have we discussed, or maybe the other side, was it Irving that we discussed in the past about adding a four-way stop around here?
I think we did Fifth and Kaiser.
Fifth and Kaiser,
Maybe.
okay.
Or we looked at speeding on the block, I think, and that never went anywhere because it didn't qualify for speed humps.
Fifth and Kaiser is a little strange how it kind of comes in.
Yeah, but it
and-
already has always
Yeah.
stopped there. So I think it was, what we did was a speed study between Fifth and Lincoln and Fifth, and it didn't qualify for speed humps. So that never really came to the table.
Gotcha.
And then this issue came with a lot of neighborhood support, I'd say.
And actually on that question, did we ever contemplate, I mean, are we going to have a similar issue at Irving and 6th?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you have this issue here at Kaiser, it's almost, it's not quite similar, but, you know, I know on the east side of Grant Park, it comes in and bends over, so you know, cars are slowed down, but you still have a lot of people that park there and visibility issues just the same. And I live right there, and so I don't mind stopping twice if it means.
I can tell you, I have not looked at it in detail until just this moment, so I don't have a great answer for you.
Does your intuition tell you it's a similar situation?
That's a two-way stop.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're an engineer. You might not have the full intuition because you have to have all the facts. But sorry, I didn't mean to unstereotype you.
No problem. It's something I would look at separately and bring you in a recommendation on that.
Okay, all right, good. All right, so does anyone want to make a motion? Commissioner Douglas?
Yeah, I'll move approval of all items as recommended by the Traffic Committee.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. All right, discussion? Commissioner Herzog?
Does this include the lights? No, just how it is as is, right?
Yep.
Commissioner Colo?
So I would say, I don't know if we've had a lot of discussion, but that flashing light for $3,000 on the curve on Coolidge seems to be a kind of a layup to add here also. So I wonder if Commissioner Douglas has any thoughts on that.
You know, having just heard it tonight, I honestly didn't think that hard about it,
Yeah.
since it sort of came in over the transom.
Make an amendment to add it?
I'll amend my motion to add the flashing light on Coolidge.
Is there a second to that
I will
amendment?
second.
Not amendment, but
Friendly amendment.
what do we call it, modification? Yeah.
It's an amendment. Modification. It's fine.
You want us to vote on the whole thing, or do you want us to vote on the amendment and then vote on the whole thing?
You could vote on the amendment. And,
Okay. We were trying to get away with friendly amendment, but that won't work.
well, you could, but I
Yeah.
do it the way you've done it, which is
Okay.
vote on the amendment, please. Thank you.
Yep. That's what I thought. I figured I'd just double check. All right. Any discussion on the amendment? All right. Call for the vote on the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We now have the original Traffic Committee recommendations with the amendment to add the flashing sign on Coolidge. Any other questions or discussion?
I appreciate the stop sign on Lawson because I was constantly, as a cyclist, making that turn, just praying everything was okay.
I'll just add that I'm a little, I think maybe it'll be interesting to see how the chicanes affect the traffic on Crooks down the road, because the purpose of those is to stop the speeding and all of that. But to Commissioner Macy's point, maybe the driving patterns aren't so succinct like that for the one student parking lot there. Maybe they come off Lexington instead and you just squeeze the bubble somewhere else, who knows, from Maine. I do like the idea of having, especially for the price, having that extra comfort in that area to turn left. However, maybe we revisit it. I'm not making that a recommendation or an order or anything like that, but we'll just keep an eye on it. If we see Crooks traffic patterns changing a little bit at that time of day, maybe it's something we look at again more holistically. So things are always changing. You make a call at a time. And okay, all right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. All right, thank you, Ms. Donahue. Appreciate all your hard work and the team's hard work. All right, this brings us to item 10, which I see Mr. Solomon is here to talk about support for Main Street Oakland County Placemaking and Public Spaces Program grant application. Mr. Solomon, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. So as I make it a point bi-monthly to let you know that we are affiliated with Main Street America and Main Street Oakland County. Part of that affiliation gets us access to grant dollars through Main Street America. This time through ARPA funds that the county still has left, we have access to Main Street Oakland County's pot towards placemaking initiatives, namely for transformational projects. As many of you know, I was here, I want to say 3 months ago, to present the 5th Street Promenade Plaza design. The name's still a work in progress, obviously. Through great participation with Commissioners Douglas, Herzog, and Commissioner Colo, sorry. We are nearing the final concepts of that, hopefully. They are with the contractor currently, and I am hoping, fingers are crossed, that I'll be back before you very soon with a concept that the DDA has looked at and approved, and a concept that you can get behind as well, incorporating that feedback. So with that comes the next phase of preparing bid documents, all of the fun stuff, but then also the funding mechanism for it. As part of the DDA's annual budget, they did approve $1.5 million for this project. On cost engineering, as we've gone through the process, it's likely going to be that much, if not a little bit more. We are looking at ways to phase that over 2 years, but also we're looking to get some grant funding here. In your packet, you will note that it states that there's a potential for up to $250,000 from the county's ARPA grants administered by Main Street Oakland County. Since putting together this packet document, that number is actually looking more like $311,000 that would come to Royal Oak for purposes of this plaza project. Once approved, construction would need to be concluded by September 2026, which, if we are continuing on the process of approval coming soon, hopefully groundbreaking next year. And even with a phased plan over 2 budget years, we see it as possible of getting it done by then.
Okay. Questions from Mr. Solomon? Commissioner Herzog.
Is there a match? You said it's ARPA funding. Is there a match that has to be made for this?
So the $311,000 cannot be more than 40% of the project budget. The matching funds would be what the DDA's already put towards it, which is the $1.5 million.
Okay. And then my other question is, in the write-up, it talks about the environmental, the water alignment. Sorry, my thing. But in the final, the one that we recently saw, I didn't see permeable pavers in that design, and there's still the synthetic grass, which will still create the microplastics. The lawn is still being discussed as to whether or not it'll be an eco-turf. We've had the contractors begin working on showing us turf products that they've said they could use that do not include microplastics, do not include anything that would leach into the groundwater, and use things like coconut husk
things that are going to be biodegradable, low maintenance, hopefully. Otherwise, we're still looking at that alternative of, is this something that we aim towards regular grass or hardy grass, or we're still in that process of determining materials of the plaza, and that will be finalized before a design comes to you. This is just simply seeking the support from the city for me to essentially hit submit on this application and say that the DDA can accept this grant if the county chooses to give it to us. But definitely on the feedback of the turf lawn, we are steering the contractor away from anything that's going to potentially do microplastics.
Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just had a conversation with the city manager earlier today because I was a little confused also. I didn't know if this was a final design request, etc. We're only approving this so that they can go to the next step with Main Street Oakland County. Main Street Oakland County knows that we approve them seeking the grant. There is no final design yet. There is no decision, but this will give us the ability to get those funds if they're available and we move forward with the project, as I understand it today.
Correct. So part of the application process just simply said that we had to have the city commission's approval and the DDA board's approval. So
This comes at no cost to the city commission today, so this is something that almost could have been on consent, it seems like, because it's something we have to do if we want to get the funds. So I'll move approval.
We have a motion by Commissioner Colo. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hunt. All right, discussion. I think this is good work, good cooperation. Royal Oak being, a prominent city in Oakland County and definitely in Southeast Oakland County, showing how entities can work together along with the DDA and the city to really improve the quality of life for people as far as placemaking is concerned. Again, going back to the idea of bringing people together, getting them off their screens and their scrolls, like Commissioner Douglas was saying, and actually talking and meeting with real human beings. And this helps activate, it helps promote healthy lifestyles, it helps promote, I think, just better environments for people to enjoy the quality of life that we offer here in Oakland County and Royal Oak. So I certainly will be supporting this proceed, and hopefully we have good discussions with the county and find something that works for everybody. All right. Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Thank you, Mr. Solomon.
Thank you.
All right, item 11, American Rescue Plan Act funds for new affordable multifamily housing. Mr. Murphy.
At your last meeting, you heard requests from 2 different developers for some financial assistance to construct new affordable multifamily developments in the city. It's important to note that today we did receive a correspondence from one of those developers, a Corey Group of Royal Oak, and they've withdrawn their request for asking you to provide funding for their project. So that leaves Lockwood Development Company, and we have with us again tonight Stephen Dronin from Lockwood. And at your last meeting, you considered different options available to you. One of those was to transfer your designated ARPA funds to the county's Housing Trust Fund. And the conversation focused on the shared purpose of the city's funds as well as the efforts by the Oakland County Housing Trust Fund and the likelihood that the project will come to fruition if we're able to leverage our funds together. And so to that, we have joining us tonight Kyle Hines. Kyle is the Oakland County Housing Trust Fund manager. So if you'd like, Kyle can give a very brief overview of the purpose of the relatively newly established Housing Trust Fund at the county and what a joint venture with the city's ARPA funds, what that might look like. So our office has given you a recommendation. You'll find suggested resolution to transfer the $1.95 million of ARPA funds that you have set aside to Lockwood's development and transferring those funds, rather I should say, to the Oakland County Housing Trust Fund specific to Lockwood's project. So I can answer any questions that you might have. And again, the 2 of those individuals are here to have a collective conversation about what a joint venture might look like.
Questions from Mr. Murphy first. Questions for Mr. Murphy? No? Okay. All right. So we don't have any questions, it appears. I mean, I think that the options have, by chance, become much smaller to consider. And there's the option still, I mean, the thought was, you know, maybe I don't steal the thunder of Kyle and he can come up and explain why, you know, it might be better to proceed with the county and earmarking this for the project as opposed to just earmarking it for the project. So Kyle, if you want to come on up, Royal Oak resident and certainly a trusted member of Oakland County's management team.
Thank you. You know, I'm Kyle Hines. I serve as the Housing Trust Fund Manager for Oakland County. I've been with the county for just over a year now, and we were originally allocated about $18 million worth of ARPA SLFRF dollars, along with a $2 million annual appropriation of general funds. To date, we've allocated all but about $4.4 million worth of our ARPA dollars. Next week, I'll have another $3 million for another mixed income housing development in Ferndale. And this project in question right now, as I intend to bring it to both our Housing Trust Fund Board and our Board of Commissioners for ultimate approval. All of our projects that we invest more than $1.5 million of county funds into requires a recommendation of our Housing Trust Fund Board, and then that goes to full Board of Commissioners for ultimate and final approval. And that would be the case with this project. We would go through that same process if we were to combine funds. But when we talk about leveraging funds, having Royal Oak's ARPA dollars combined with our funds makes the project, one, economically feasible. Without both of our combined efforts on this, given the site constraints, given the actual affordability that's being provided there, the project isn't economically feasible. So we need to be able to combine these resources. And then also there's also the kind of the economies of scale and or I guess joint review and oversight of the project. I think one of the concerns that Mayor, you brought up to me when we met was who makes sure that this thing is actually going to be affordable on top and who makes sure that the funds are allocated to eligible uses. I have a team and my staff, we've created our procedures and policies to, one, enter into the agreements that have been opined on by our corporation counsel, as well as Guidehouse, our ARPA dollar consultant. We've created those documents and put all of the necessary restrictive covenants in place to make sure that we're getting what we say we are. And then we can also help with the income verification to make sure that we're serving those that we said that we would be serving through this project. And then there's also, because it's a tax credit development and MSHDA is involved with it, there's 50 other layers of oversight on these things, and they have plenty of good reasons, $20 million worth of good reasons not to mess this up and try to not lease it to who they say they're gonna, or lease it at rates that aren't affordable to what they said they were. So that's kind of how we would see it. I think with the agreement in place with you, I must say that our corporation counsel has not reviewed it, but we will certainly work with that, and it didn't seem like anything glaring. I will comment that the 18-month construction time that was brought up in the public comment hearing, that was meant from if we were to enter into this agreement with Royal Oak tomorrow, 18 months isn't enough time for them to get their plans, permits, all of that stuff. This would be from when the official financial close, all the tax credit equity has been provided, all the other ancillary funds are there. That would be 18 months is doable there. But our biggest concern and the county's concern is, one, we need to be able to enter into some form of loan agreement or contract with the developer by the end of the year, because our ARPA funds do have that deadline. And then all of the funds must be expended by September 30th, 2026. And that would be, I think your funds have been spent in a different fashion, but that's what we're working with, and that would be the timeline that we'd be hoping to achieve. And just as far as the project itself, it's tough to even see projects like this in such a downtown, urban, walkable access to like all the great amenities that we do have here in Royal Oak. And it's nice to actually work with a developer that's trying to do that. So much of our affordable housing has been built in places like Pontiac, where it's easy, where it's cheap, and where it's just that's just been kind of what's been happening. But for Royal Oak to actually step up and say like, yeah, we support affordable housing, we support mixed income housing. That's why me, as I guess just general citizen housing trust fund manager, I'm here to say that I'm supporting of it. Like we have a few funding sources that we would need to tie up here and at the county level because this is more money than I do have at this time. But we're working on that. We're all working together because we see we need to be able to put affordable housing, mixed income housing everywhere. And I will share a sheet with everybody that shows who we're actually serving with this, from teachers, firefighters, to restaurant workers, to daycare workers. This is what we absolutely need to be supporting. And sorry that was long-winded. I know you just wanted to talk about leveraging funds, but I get excited about affordable housing, as you can probably tell why I'm doing the work.
That was really good, really good. Mr. Grachowski.
Thank you, and I just wanted to kind of add to the comments. Mr. Hines and I had several email conversations back and forth, learned a lot. The proposed agreement needs to be significantly amended based on everything I learned from Mr. Hines. So the agreement, I think the resolution is fine with final revisions as provided by the city attorney, but that attached agreement misses the mark on the knowledge we had at the time when we drafted it. And now that I've had those important conversations, and thank you very much for the prompt replies, we will need to work on that before their corporate counsel looks at it, because obviously it needs work right now.
Yeah, I think it'll be a team effort. Like we're on the same side, and the developer's also been helpful getting through all of our documentation so far. But like we would obviously have to go through our process to accept and receive the grant funds and set that all up. And then a lot of the timelines, deadlines, and what happens to the funds if this project were to not move forward, how that all works. I think in speaking with the city attorney, I am in complete agreement. And then also what happens to the funds when they are paid off? Like what's the next fun, great project we get to work on together? So,
and kind of elaborating on this, I think the decision of the commission was to allocate those funds. They can use them to support their fund or their project for affordable housing. But I think the county has a program where they can further leverage those funds and treat them possibly as a long-term loan. And Kyle can certainly expand on that, which might enable us to further leverage those loans. And one of my questions to him is making sure that if that is what ultimately happens, that those funds are earmarked for future projects in the city of Royal Oak. So these are things we need to explore. And I don't know if that goes against your philosophy of using those funds as far as, just allocating them and spending them and being done, or if that's something, I assume further leverage is a good thing. So that was what we were going to explore.
Yes, just to provide a little bit of background on that, all of our ARPA SLRF projects will allocate those funds in the form of a long-term subordinate debt cash flow contingent loan, if that makes any sense to anybody. And so like, it's not like we're going to get the funds back tomorrow or even in 5 years. These projects take a long time to cash flow because they aren't charging market rate rents. They're charging this project, I think, right now based on 2024 rental limits for 60% AMI is $1,000 for a one-bedroom and $1,200 for a two-bedroom. So correct me if I'm wrong on that. Okay, and so it takes a while to pay back loans, but like in 20, 30, 40 years. We set them up with 40-year terms, but we anticipate we'll get repaid by then. But what we can do, in the same way that any other agency or if some foundation said, well, we want to support housing here, those funds wouldn't be just like a cash equivalent. It's a restricted asset, and once those funds are repaid along with our funds, then we can find the next project to work with, or you can just pay it back to Royal Oak, and maybe at that time there's a park that needs funding, maybe there's an infrastructure project that the funds could be used for. That would be the city's prerogative, but we do have a way of setting that up as a loan.
Mr. Wellweber. I just want to add, in this case, Joseph was kind enough to assist Emily from our staff, and who works on economic development activities, but between them they put together the nice chart that kind of outlines things, and it was a good learning opportunity, and we appreciate
Emily being able to work with Joseph on this project. I want to give her a plug for doing that. So
very good. Team effort. So what I hear is that we have a resolution in front of us that gives us a little bit of leeway to work out some of the quirks of the recent discussions as it would be reflected in a contract that would come back to us at a later date. Is that what I understand?
That's correct. Actually, the proposed resolution approves the contract
allocation,
with the allocation and a future contract once we've partnered with the county and their legal counsel to make sure we've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's.
The most important thing would be, like, just to not try to get involved with too much of the business, but the most important thing would be to make sure that the funds are earmarked and allocated to this project for MSHDA purposes, so that they know that, yes, this is there, but we'll work out contractual details between the county and Royal Oak.
And protect against if for whatever reason it doesn't go through. Let's say, developer gets cold feet, then we're not stuck in a quandary where it's like, okay, now you have 36 minutes to figure out what to do with this money before your ARPA expires. All those different legal mechanisms between the shifting between our accounts and your accounts, and that it's all legit and transparent. Okay. Questions for Mr. Hines? Okay. Must be a solid recommendation on the table. All right. Well, thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it. All right. Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I just want to thank Mr. Hines. I mean, for working with the city, this is a great partnership. It takes a lot of administration off of our staff. Also ensures that these funds are being used by the right people that they're intended to be used for. So this is a great use and a great partnership with the county. So thank you for the county. So it sounds like one thing that we could do tonight is approve the allocation. That sounds like a prudent course, and then maybe let administration and the county work out the contract and bring that back to us at another night.
Yeah.
That seems to be the path of least resistance.
Yeah. Does that sound like a fair motion?
Yeah, if you want to do it that way, the current resolution reads that you approve the agreement upon revisions by the city attorney. You could do, but if you want to see the final agreement and approve the final agreement, I have no problem as long as you're allocating the funds and earmarking them for this project. I think that suits the county's needs, and we can always bring back the agreement before you if you want to see the final version.
I'm good either way. It's your motion, though, what you want to do.
I guess I would ask, first I'd ask the attorney what that motion would look like if we were to go the route of allocating the funds and then bringing back the contract in the future. And then listen to my fellow commissioners to see if anyone has any other comments.
The motion would be to approve with the revision to the final resolution that's included in your packet to approve the existing agreement with the recommendation to bring it back to the commission, if that's the direction you wanted to take. So it would be a slight modification to the very last resolution.
Commissioner Douglas?
So the idea here is that we would have eyes, the commission would have eyes on the contract before it's finally signed. I will say that there are esquires at the table who maybe have that expertise, but I don't know that I could contribute that much to reviewing the contract. I'm comfortable foregoing that.
Commissioner Hunt?
I would say I would appreciate seeing the contract before we have the ability to approve it, given contracts that have come through or passed this commission in the past. I would like to avoid some of the things that we've had come before us before, so I would appreciate seeing it.
Commissioner Macy?
Although that wasn't you.
I will say not under my watch.
Thank you. Or this commission. It was other previous commissions.
Totally other people. But yes, I agree. I'd just like to see it and not just, it just feels like doing our due diligence on it.
Okay. So, Commissioner Cole, you want to take a stab at the motion?
I move approval of the motion that the city attorney eloquently stated about 45 seconds ago.
Clerk will have to.
Clerk's going to have to watch that film, get a replay. Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Colo, and I think we all joking aside, we all understand it's to move forward with the allocation with contractual revisions that will be reviewed and approved by this body separately. Okay. All right. Is there a second? Commissioner Hunt?
Yes.
Okay. All right, discussion? All right, Paul. Well, before that, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Hines, for meeting with us as well. This is a tough thing with just ARPA being involved and, you know, living up to the ambition that we want to make sure that Royal Oak can be a home to anybody. I say it, and I say it without any reservation, that if, you know, our kids grow up to be teachers, to be letter carriers, to service at our restaurants, and they can't find a place to call home in the city they grew up in, shame on all of us. So this is one of these opportunities where we're not going to solve the region's issue, the world's issue, but we're going to do our part to chip away at it and make progress and be an example and a lighthouse for other communities. And in partnership with Oakland County, we have another set of experts to help us vet this and help us manage this. And so it's going to be a good news story, and look forward to the success of it. So I'll call for Commissioner Macy, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, very well said, Mayor, and I just wanted to say it got me extra excited when Mr. Hines was talking about how this is sort of a unique project and talking about all the wonderful things that Royal Oak has to offer, and it's right in the center. So love that.
Again, more facts about how great Royal Oak is.
More free,
Just get that out.
Someone call Niche, let them know.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Look forward to the work, guys. Okay, this brings us to item 12, which is proposed ordinance amendment 2024-09, high school student appointments to boards and commission. I see Mr. Krachowski is assigned with this one to kick it off.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening. There's actually three proposed amendments, number 12, 13, and 14 on the agenda. I'll apologize. I just noticed that I attached red lines to all those, but it only made it through on number 13, and 12 and 14 don't, for some reason, the red line didn't show up. I apologize. I'll have to pay more attention to the glitch in the e-scribe for not picking up the red line. But given that all three ordinances are very, very simple, it should be fairly easy to discern what's being recommended for change. So with that, the First Amendment is 2024-09 regarding high school student appointments to boards and commissions. As you're aware, we have a general section regarding appointments to boards and commissions under section 12-3 of the Royal Oak City Ordinances, which encourages high school student representation on city boards and committees to provide opportunities for those students to serve their community, participate in the process, enhance input from students in governmental decisions, create positive interactions between adult and student leaders, and give students an opportunity to gain valuable experience. With that, the EAB has two high school students that are extremely active within the EAB, and they suggested a resolution to allow high school students to have a bigger voice by allowing them to be voting members on their board. Right now, section 12-11E of the code states that students shall serve as non-voting members on all boards and commissions. So this proposed amendment, pursuant to that request, allows each board and commission, and there is some exceptions to this, to, if it's in their, either their enacting ordinance, their enacting resolution, or they can amend their bylaws to allow students to be voting members of that advisory board and commission. And I use that word advisory as a term of art here because the exception to that, this proposed amendments are statutorily created boards and commissions such as the Planning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, where state law requires them to be actual voting, age of voting in the city. So they can't serve on those particular, students can't serve on those boards and commissions to begin with, nor could they serve as voting members. But on all other advisory boards and commissions, the amendment would allow that to happen and give the discretion to each of those boards and commissions to amend their bylaws to allow those student members the opportunity to have a bigger voice by allowing them to, allowing their participation to expand to vote. What better way to serve the purpose of your enabling ordinance 12-3 that gives them that ability by also giving them the ability to be a voting member. So for your consideration is an ordinance that allows them the opportunity to vote if indeed the ordinance, resolution, or bylaws of that advisory board or commission are amended to provide for that. And as you know, we are in the process of adopting multiple bylaws for different boards and commissions through the bylaw review process that we've been going through. So this is a good opportunity to also have that discussion of any boards and commissions that might want to afford that opportunity to those student members.
Questions? Commissioner Douglas.
Our boards and commissions all have odd numbers of members for the obvious reason. Do we want to make sure that if we are adding members, voting members to these bodies, that we retain an odd number?
Absolutely. That's critical, I think, to any board and commission. Although granted, there are challenges on boards and commissions with meeting quorum or absenteeism where you may end up with an even number no matter what, but certainly that's the case. And I don't think this changes, like for instance, the EAB who pretty much brought this forward, I think they're considered part of the composition of the board to begin with. So even though they don't have a vote, they still count as, I think, towards quorum. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
They don't.
But
they will
so
be.
that's something definitely probably I didn't even think of looking at, and certainly should be communicated if you desire to adopt what's been presented to you tonight. And I can do a little more looking into that between first and second reading and maybe provide a better answer for you too before second reading.
We'll go with Commissioner Colo and then Commissioner Herzog.
So I guess the other end of that question though is to accommodate that if we had a student committee or a student member, we would then have to add an additional regular member or another student to offset that. And I don't think we want to fluctuate the numbers of the boards and committees at all times. For instance, I believe Parks and Recs at one time had a student member on it, and maybe does that at this moment, I forget. I would think that the way to deal with that might be better dealt with on that committee level. It might just end up in a tie. And that is just something that I don't think we'll have many cases like that. I think our committees are well ran and they do a really good job convincing each other of their viewpoints. But that's an advisory that comes to us, and it would come to us as a tie. That'd be something we would consider. But fluctuating the number, because once again, a student is a 1-year term and a regular term is a 3-year term. So if we had a student for 1 year, but then a regular person, a regular number, that's 3 years that we have to deal with. And I think that throws into chaos almost the balance that we have. So I appreciate that. I think we might rather just accept that there might be a tie as a result of this, and that's part of the experiment.
Fair enough.
Commissioner Herzog?
I was just going to add to that the conversation at the Environmental Advisory Board is that we're going to have odd number, and we're going to account for the students on the board. And we're going to fix that in our bylaws, and that will come to our next meeting, so how we attempt to do that.
How many members do we have in the EAB? Remind me again.
Right now, I think it's actually an even number, and so that's why this conversation kind of came up, and I think we're going to go with 11. I don't know. It hasn't been discussed. We're still working through our bylaws and our ordinance, so I can't remember.
So it would be 11 members plus 2? That would
No,
be...
we have an open seat right now, so we have the ability to keep it at 11.
I'm just trying to get a gauge of, like, if you have 2 students, what percentage of the board makeup would they be? Like 20% of the board?
Well, I think that this is also a conversation for the board itself to maybe discuss how they want that voice to be present. Sure, you know.
But I just want to I'm just trying to gauge.
I think it's 11, and I think we have 2, but the chair is here, Woody Guntia, so he could maybe speak to that. How many people there are?
That's correct. We currently have 11, the 2 students will make it 13. We're currently in the process of sort of getting an understanding of where this conversation turns out to help inform our discussion around our bylaws and what we want to keep the number at, and how that would include the students. So whether or not those students are voting members is part of the conversation.
Okay.
And we were gonna say too, like up to 2 students, and if there wasn't any students, that wouldn't really affect our quorum and all the.
Well, other than the dynamic that Commissioner Douglas or Commissioner Colo brought up, like if
we couldn't appoint any students, we have to do a workaround for, if there were no students that wanted to be on the board in the future.
But if there was 1 but not 2, then you have an even number, and you could just accept that if that's what you wanted to do. Okay. Any other comments, or maybe I'm showing my age, but I mean, I appreciate it. I think that if, like Commissioner Colo said, he used the word experiment, and if something doesn't work out here, Mr. Gachowski, do we have the ability to go back and say, look, we're going to update the ordinance, and it caused too many problems, there were unintended consequences, whatever we had a hard time finding folks, kids, young people that want to participate when you have to start asking people to fill roles, and then they give a vote to an advisory committee, and then we see something up here that says, oh, well, they voted, that carries a lot of credibility, even though they're advisory boards, like the traffic committee, we just put a lot of faith in, we didn't look, oh, this guy voted for it, no, it must not be a good idea or something. Like, we really take that collective wisdom into advisement here as the base. And then I think when we get these advisory board recommendations, we have to deviate from it. That's why we have these boards, right? Doing all the hard work. The Environmental Advisory Board does a ton of hard work, and we rely on that opinion. And if there's some sort of, discontent or issues with, maybe a less mature view of the world, that could be a problem, but also you get, sort of a future view of the world at the same time. So there's a trade-off. To me, it's not a slam dunk. I just see like there could be issues. And I don't know how to feel about it. I'm looking for someone to change my mind here.
Can I give some more context? Yeah. So this started when we were looking at our bylaws at the Environmental Advisory Board. And the 2 students that are on the board are B-teens. And they said, well, why can't we vote? And so we had some discussion around why are 2 students who are bringing policy that are being approved by this body not allowed to vote in the board that they serve on? And they do a lot of different things throughout our community. And so we had a conversation about that, and then I asked the clerk, what other commissions or boards have students on it? And the other one was the Human Rights Commission. And so I took it to them, and they, at one of their meetings, also discussed, should students have voting rights on their commission, because will this help students be more involved? And they had a very involved student as well, who they felt it would help the students engage. And we are trying to look towards the future when we're making decisions on these boards and commissions, and this is the future. And so to see engagement by students really says a lot about our city and the progressiveness of what we're trying to accomplish. And then just last meeting, we approved an easement at the school, because the students at the school came to the school board and said, hey, we have a safety concern here. And so we have these really engaged students, and I think this helps them have a voice and engagement in our community. And I think they're already pushing policy, and I think they should just be part of this. And hey, if we have 20 students on the EAB, and they're never going to be the majority, but if they were the majority, I would follow them, because I think that they're going to do right by us for climate and the environment for our community. So I don't know if that changed your mind, but
No, I mean, I think it, like, with the folks that we have serving the students that we have serving in the capacities now, it sounds like a lot of the recommendations coming from the quality of student that we have serving on these two boards as the examples that you gave. But in a year, maybe two, maybe they stay forever. Maybe when they turn 18, they stay local.
And we've had that actually on our board.
But if they don't, and we bring someone in that's less of a, they get appointed and they have less of a, reputation, I don't know, but I guess that happens with any adult too or whatever. Are we making, as part of the decision influence based on the very high quality students we have on a couple board, which is great, that's a good baseline. But when we think about just, the process, is that always going to be the case, and will it borrow more trouble? I don't know.
And I just want to speak to that point. We do have members on commissions that don't show up to meetings and they don't do the work that they need to do. And they're adults and they're voting in our elections. And these students, I don't know how often you work with students, but if a student comes outside of their bubble to participate in civic activities, they're usually quality students, because I haven't really met anyone that does extra and isn't quality. But they also don't serve the majority on the boards. And so even if they voted no on everything, things would still pass through if they would still have to get the majority to pass something that we would find crazy, right?
Mr.
Just wanted to answer your earlier question. If it, for some reason, goes sideways in the future, can we amend the ordinance? And the answer is yes. I would recommend, if that was the case, though, that we basically do it in phases to not remove an active member, but basically sunset it after a term is reached. Yeah, so do it in that manner, so you don't necessarily remove somebody, but at least you have the opportunity, if it happens to not work out in the long run, that you can kind of sunset it or phase it out.
Okay. Any other discussion? Commissioner Colo?
I just think that it's important, as we've talked a lot tonight, but my only thing is talk about quorum. I think that's important, and making sure that a student's absence not impacting our quorums on our committees. I think that's something we really should think about, especially if we're adding another student, adding to the body size. So I think if this passes tonight, between first and second, we just want to make sure, in addition to my previous comments earlier, that quorum is thought about, so we're not amending every bylaw in every board and committee.
Commissioner Herzog?
But we're already doing that. We're already having to go through all the bylaws and ordinances of all the commissions that they're trickling in.
I think if Mr. Brakeman was here, we'd see that EAB might be one of the last. Like, we've done a lot of them so far.
Okay.
Anything else? Any motions?
Oh, I will that's me. Sorry. I have moved to approve the amendment.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Herzog. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion.
And there'll be a second reading on this.
And I'll bring back a little more information that was raised this evening.
Good.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know that I'm quite there yet. I think I can be convinced between now and second reading. I'm like 51, 49. My challenge is the quorum issues. The challenge is the number of people on the boards, and the challenge is, having even votes. And how to manage this process when typically the students last about a year, maybe 2 years on their tenure, and finishing out the assignments and that process of having more continuous gaps. I think it's important that young people have a voice, and being at the table, they do have a voice and they do have a say, and I think the B-Tweens are a great example of how they've influenced this body to make changes in the community. I just don't know if I'm quite there yet, and I admit my bias as being a middle-aged man, and maybe that's a little, and having a 16-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. I love them to pieces, but I guess I've seen all sides of kids. And so I'm just not quite there yet, so I'm gonna have to be a no for now. but maybe, I'm looking at Commissioner Macy and Commissioner Herzog, maybe you guys, between now and second reading, can convince me otherwise. My mind is open, but I'm going to be a little conservative on this one and let my gray hair shine in this particular case. Commissioner Macy.
Okay, so Commissioner Herzog, you work on convincing the mayor, and I'll talk to his children and make them be good for the next month. And
Well, they're great kids. They're good kids all the time.
maybe that'll help.
I just, sometimes the quality of decision making, the evidence, like, sometimes left behind. But you know, we want to definitely promote the voices, especially in those committees where they can be most influential and have to deal with the results of those votes, meaning, you know, a lot of environmental things we're not fixing for tomorrow, we're fixing for decades down the road. And so having a say, if younger people had more of a say in their future, you know, maybe we wouldn't be enduring the issues that we have today. But I'm saying there's room here to bring me over the edge. I just need a little work on it, okay? So I'm open. Don't judge me too much as a cranky old man. Just
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, get off my lawn type of guy. Just, I'm asking you to work on me a little bit because I think it's important that we're honest if we have reservations. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. All right, I'm on my island for now. Okay. All right, that brings us to 13.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening again. This is proposed ordinance amendment 2024-11 fugitive dust regulations. The good news is there is a red line version attached to this particular agenda item. You may recall back in September of 2023, there was a commission discussion pertaining to our present ordinance. I did provide that previous correspondence at that time that was discussed. To refresh your recollection, sorry this got put on the back burner, but we're back on it today pursuant to your direction, and basically have before you a proposed ordinance amendment that we believe as staff incorporates exactly the desire that the commission directed us to accomplish at that time, and thus we have that amendment for your consideration and possible approval.
Questions of Mr. Grochowski? Commissioner Douglas.
This came to my attention when I was the City Commission representative on the Environmental Advisory Board. And one of the people on that board who was especially passionate about this subject made the case that neighbors should be notified when demolition is going to take place. And my question to Mr. Grochowski is, did that come up? Did you hear that in your discussions? Do the existing state laws even allow us to make such a requirement? And I'm not necessarily advocating for it, but I would like to know that we've explored that subject.
Absolutely, thank you. So if you refer back to the previous 2023 memo, I put in there a actual sign that we use where let's say a home comes in and they want to pull a permit to, or a company comes in and wants to demo a home. They have to pull a permit, and part of that permit process, they're required to post this sign on the property that indicates that they're required to comply with this ordinance. So the good news is this ordinance amendment actually now complies with the sign we have been using, which basically gives them notice that there's demolition activity occurring or going to be occurring, that use of dust mitigation measures is required, and a number to contact the building department or the non-emergency police department to report a concern if the dust mitigation is not being used at that site. So we accomplish that goal that you just mentioned through the permit process and require that sign as part of the permit. So that's how we enforce it and will enforce this ordinance going forward.
But does that sign say we will be doing this demolition work on August 12th and 13th? I mean, if I'm a mom and I have children and I want to keep my children inside while this is going on, how do I know that that's going to happen?
Yeah, there's no, and again, this is based on what we've been doing in the past, so we didn't completely reinvent the wheel. It just basically requires that the sign be posted shortly before demolition is started. So it gives some prior notice, but there is no required dates on the pre-printed signs that we have. It just basically says that they have to take all steps necessary to mitigate the dust using water spray, and that the sign must be affixed and visible at the site at all times during demolition activities. So we didn't change anything with prior practice by providing additional notice. As you know, in the construction, you may best laid plans change daily, so it's really hard to stick an actual date on there, and we would have to do something with our sign to do a fill-in date or something. So we didn't really talk about like a pre-notice other than here's a sign, you have to use dust mitigation during demolition, and here's numbers you can call the city. It doesn't give you weeks or days, but it'll give you enough notice that maybe you can consider some precautions. But in a perfect world, if they're using the proper dust mitigation measures, there should be no dust that you have to protect your family from either. So again, in a perfect world, if it is done properly, they can use a water spray to mitigate it. So, no is the answer to your question.
Thank you.
It's a very long no.
Other questions?
Long no.
Commissioner Macy.
Can I ask a question of Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Is the EAB satisfied with what is happening here?
Yeah. I was going to just make a comment about how this came to us on the Environmental Advisory Board in 2016 from a resident. And it showed up on our agenda when Commissioner Pat Perush came to talk about the legal aspects of that. So it's been a long road. I think the signs have already been in the wild and hopefully been working. And I think that this is a great step to have a healthy and sustainable Royal Oak. And it checks one of our action items off of the sustainability and action plan.
Good. Any other questions? Any motions? Commissioner Herzog.
I move to adopt the the amendment.
Okay.
The ordinance amendment.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Herzog, second by Commissioner Kolo. Discussion. I think this is great. I know since 2016 we've been working on it. I won't make any jokes about dusting it off, but I appreciate the EAB and all their efforts. This is, even in my neighborhood, we have rebuilds, and you can see the dust in the air sometimes over the years, and driving down the highway, it can't be good. And to have a measure here to, one, make contractors conscious of what they're doing to the air, and especially in a densely populated area, and number two, instructing what the remedy is to mitigate that dust is really important. And it's not a tremendous amount of cost for someone to do this for the protection, literally with kids with asthma going into an asthma attack or whatever. I mean, this isn't stuff that's like, 30 years from now you get cancer, maybe, but this is like immediate. When these things happen, people get sick right away. So I'm very supportive of this and glad we were able to soon get it over the goal line. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, and then, number 14, proposed ordinance amendment, marijuana regulations. Mr. Grochowski.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, on the agenda for your review and consideration is a proposed ordinance amendment 2024-10. It actually contains two proposed amendments to the marijuana regulations. The first one is a change to the definition of what constitutes a marijuana micro-business within the city. The CRA, the Cannabis Regulatory Agency, recently made some amendments to their administrative code, and recognizing a need to reclassify or add a class of marijuana microbusinesses because the original microbusiness was a overwhelmingly difficult business model to succeed at. They added a Class A microbusiness. So the first proposed part of this amendment amends the section of the ordinance in the definition section to basically redefine microbusinesses, marijuana microbusinesses, as anything defined as a microbusiness by the CRA, either a Class A or a microbusiness is what it's still called, but then a Class A. This would basically permit the one permitted marijuana microbusiness in the city to basically apply for the upgraded Class A microbusiness license with the state. There is a increased fee with the state for that license, and if granted, and if this amendment does pass, they would be able to operate with those operating restrictions. The primary restrictions or the primary changes to the operations, potential operations, would include, instead of limited to 150 adult plants, they would be limited to 300, and they would be able to bring in consumables from outside their particular growing operation. Right now, as it stands, they have to provide a substantial amount of their grown product to produce certain edibles or other forms of marijuana. And as you can imagine, that substantially impacts the nature of the harvest and what they can sell straight marijuana with. So the CRA has seen fit to amend the rules to allow the expansion, but not so much so that it'll necessarily change the footprint or the overall operations of them to be allowed to bring in certain edibles and to grow 300 plants. The second amendment, or part to the amendment, has been a request that would extend the operating or amend the operating hours for all marijuana businesses in the city from, so presently, sorry, I'm having a hiccup here with the system. Where is it? Pardon me, one moment, sorry. So currently, businesses are required to be open from, and I know both parties are here this evening and would appreciate or be able to answer any questions if you might. But it would extend the operating hours from basically they would not be permitted to operate between 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. Whereas I think previously the ordinance was 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I believe. Unfortunately, this thing just crashed on me, so I'm unable to find.
It's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. right now.
Right, it's 8 to 8 right now. They're proposing, or they've requested an amendment to allow 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. So it only extends the overall length of operating hours from 12 hours per day to 13-hour days, but it does shift the close time from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's what that ordinance amendment basically proposes. You have attached to the agenda item extensive letters and some background information from both of the requesting parties that are requesting these ordinance amendments. They are here with their legal attorneys this evening, and I'm certain could answer any questions, if I can't answer any, that you may have with regard to these proposed ordinances. Thank you.
Questions from Mr. Grzechowski? So two basic, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Herzog.
When were the times established?
I'm sorry, the times for the operating hours?
Yeah.
So I wasn't here at that time when this was passed. I assume there was, when the ordinance was originally adopted most of this commission was here and approved that ordinance with the then, I think it was outside counsel that assisted with, was it 2022? 18. Was it 18 when you adopted the ordinance?
It was a long time ago.
It was during COVID, I thought.
It was during.
Oh, during, yeah, you're right.
It was
I guess the extension's
2021,
18.
maybe
You guys approved it
2021.
in July of 20.
And then my other question is, if we change the times, that's for, if we change the hours, that's for all establishments
It
in the
would
city,
apply
it's not
to
just
all
theirs.
establishments, yes.
And just to confirm, I mean, that's really a 12-hour shift from 9 to 10, from 8 to 8. No, it's adding an hour. It basically is adding
13.
an hour. Yeah. And the other change is really just related to changes by the CRA to allow for micros to have more plants.
And I can answer the question. Adopted July 27, 2020 is when you adopted that ordinance. Sorry I didn't have that answer sooner.
And the residential noise ordinance, is that from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.?
No.
11 to 7 maybe. Construction, I think, is 11 to 7.
There's different regulations for
Okay.
like construction activities versus like parties.
Okay.
So there's different regulations. So that would allow them to stay open. I mean, up until 10 o'clock. And I was gonna add, sorry, that the reason I think it's coming to light now is, even though this ordinance was passed 4 years ago, to implement it and actually go through the approval process, and there was some litigation, these businesses are just now getting up and running. I think Gadsby just opened 2 months ago. The other one on Woodward has been open since 1 year. And then I believe the third establishment is open as well, or just open. So this is more coming to light as they've been in operation and learning operational challenges and what might help them best for their situation.
My only concern with like the timing is, and the fact that it's all the establishments in the city, is the one that's on Harrison, and that one is not. It's not on residential property, but it's nestled in a residential area. And if the noise is from 10 to 6 a.m. and they're closing at 10, like I don't know if that's going to create an issue being in a residential area.
I'll just say I think that this is something we're all learning, so we've had to have some changes. It's a brand new to Michigan, brand new to anybody. We don't have this historical context. We have maybe as a proxy, alcohol serving establishments that have carryout licenses. I mean, maybe that's a proxy. I don't think, these are pretty low, the customer traffic is relatively low key. Anyways, the question about the one, if we do the ordinance, then that allows everybody to do it. I think it's an interesting question on the one on Harrison. I'm not sure that, 10 o'clock, everybody's storming at 9:58, and then everybody's storming out. I don't think they spend, it's not a consumption area, so they're not spending 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes shopping around saying, oh, that's my hypothesis. I don't think it will be an issue going to 10, because I know a lot of other types of stores of convenience where people buy alcohol, whatever, are open till, you go to Myers right across the street, you can buy beer till, I think 24 hours a day, unless it's like one of these weird.
It's not in residential. Do we have a residential?
No, well, this one's not
example?
actually in, it's the one on Harrison is technically not in a residential area. It wasn't zoned residential, it was all commercial and.
But it's surrounded by, there's condos, like, it's nestled in. Yeah, I understand that it's not, but I live there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm inclined to support these proposals. In fact, when we first approved the ordinance and it was 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., it was like a part of an enormous document. And I just sort of went, fine, yeah, okay. But I'm sympathetic to any business that's trying to get established and be successful and define its operations in a way that helps it succeed. We've approved these marijuana businesses, and I don't have a problem with the operating hours, or certainly with the creation of the Class A category.
Anybody else?
And
Commissioner Macy?
I was gonna say, I pretty much feel the same, that I was not paying a lot of attention to these hours, and pretty much probably anything you would have put there at the time, we would have said yes unless it looked ridiculous, and if this had been there, I think we would have said yes. So yes, I mean, I'm sympathetic to I do think that one is different in the way that it's located, but I also don't feel like these hours are outside of the bounds of what would be normal even within a neighborhood like that. So I guess I'm open to be convinced about that, but at the moment I share Commissioner Douglas's feelings on it.
So I'll make a motion to approve the proposed amendment to the ordinance.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion. Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess this is a question for the city attorney. If we do find that this is an issue with one good actor in one area that might be causing an issue, can we implement something close to like a plan of operation where that needs to be approved to be open, so that we could say one can be open until 9 o'clock at night and one can be open until 10 o'clock at night? Do these hours, do we have some leeway there? And maybe that's something to look into over the next couple months here, but that could be a potential solution if there is one that's an issue and one that doesn't have an issue.
Well, I would hesitate a little bit with that, just because once you grant it, it's harder to take it away, number one. And number two, you don't necessarily want to disparately treat the businesses otherwise. So there would be some uphill battles. I would start with the approach that we would ask for like some adjustments voluntarily to try to curb if there became a problem at one of the facilities. Otherwise, I mean, you can amend your ordinance, but it'd be a harder amend backwards once you've granted something to take it away. So it would be a challenge.
Okay, I know tonight we approved 2 plan of operations. We became creative in the city to make the plan of operations a thing, and they've worked tremendously, so just something to put some thought into.
Anybody else? Commissioner Hahn.
I keep trying to do that. I mean, I have to say, I think I'm on the fence with this. I don't quite know that the 2 hour, I mean, I don't know the business as much as I'm sure the owners and the operators know, but that the 2 hours would make that much of a difference. But I also can't believe that, there's going to be a ton of noise coming in and out of these parking lots, that people will be hanging out. But I just don't know necessarily that it makes much sense to extend it to 10 o'clock when there are most businesses close at 9 o'clock. So I really am on the fence and struggling with this one, and we'll just see what happens.
I think with regard to the times, I know the submission by the requester did provide some comparable ordinances from neighboring cities, if that helps you in your decision-making process. Just pointing that out if that helped you at all. Seems to be pretty consistent between 9 and 10 o'clock among most of those communities.
Any other discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No.
2 noes? Okay. All right, motion passes. All right, that brings us to the last item on tonight's agenda, which is the discussion on the recommendation from council in closed session regarding MPS. Commissioner Macy.
I move that we follow legal counsel's recommendation as discussed in closed session regarding the issue, don't make me say the case again, the case.
The case.
Pending litigation.
Pending
Pending
litigation.
litigation. Okay, all right. That's seconded by Commissioner Colo.
Enthusiastically.
Okay, all right. Discussion. With none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. All right. Notwithstanding anything for the betterment of our amazing, outstanding, and vibrant community, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. All right. Discussion on this motion?
It was enthusiastic. It was enthusiastic. That's an enthusiastic second, she said.
I feel like sometimes I'm up here, I'm like doing play-by-play. Sometimes I'm doing color, so you kind of gotta, you know. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Adjourned.